Guarda. Bienvenidos. Welcome to all of you out there in the Capital District and beyond. You're listening to Vida Latina Upstate, where we present the Upstate Latino point of view. My name is Dan Irizarry, and it's a pleasure to be with you once again. This particular show, this particular episode, is going to be a very emotional one for me. I'll try to keep it all in. But the truth is that I'm here to interview my niece, Aurora, and phenomenal violinist, Aurora Mendez, who just happened to come straight to the studio from a masterful performance of Antonio Vivaldi's The Four Seasons, which she performed at the Cultural Empowerment and Community Engagement Center together with the wonderful and gifted Renata Rolfing. Okay, sobrina. How are you, mamita?
I'm good. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here. And thank you for that wonderful intro. I'm so honored. I'm speechless.
No, it's for those of you who weren't at the center on Sunday, you missed an incredible performance, an incredible duet between two masterful musicians. I'll let Aurora speak about Renata Rolfing, but my niece is someone who I've watched grow, obviously as a family member, but as a musician, from her humble beginnings in the South Bronx to fast forward to an incredible career playing for various different orchestras and symphonies and traveling the world. And most recently, and I don't know what you call this latest position that you find yourself in, but she's going to be playing on Broadway, ladies and gentlemen, as one of the house musicians.
A guest musician, a guest substitute.
Okay, so at the incredible revival of
Ragtime.
Ragtime, baby, Scott Joplin. So welcome.
Thank you
so much.
Man, it's an honor.
Of a pleasure to be here. Yeah.
Thank you.
Tell me, I know we talked a little bit about the prep for this particular concerti. See, he's doing it again. It's 4 concerti, right?
It's plural.
Quattro concerti.
Okay. Mr. Italian over here. That's our producer, just in case you might not have heard earlier. Daniel Irizarry, my son, behind the scenes here. Anyway, it is such. Obviously, it was written for violin, right?
Yep.
And it is something that is familiar, as Renata said, to many of us, because there are sections of it that are just like sampled, to use a kind of a modern phrase, but they're sampled in every manner of commercials. I haven't kept track of all the kinds of commercials that, parts of the concerti, whether it's spring or winter, are sampled on, but it is... Parts of it are ubiquitous, but few people have listened to the entirety of it. And I just wanted to ask you, because I saw you sweating up a storm.
Bullets.
What does it take to perform that piece in terms of the time employed? I know it's a truncated time for you, but in terms of people who play this, how difficult a piece is it?
Well, I'll tell you. So to your point, they are 4 separate concertos, right? Plural in Italian is concerti for sure. But those 4 concertos all have 3 different movements within each piece, right? So because of that, you are essentially condensing what would normally be maybe one concert into what would be 4 concerts into one, because traditionally speaking, when you perform as a soloist with an orchestra, which would be the traditional format for these type of performances, you would traditionally be playing one concerto with the orchestra, and then the orchestra would continue and play a symphony or a larger work, right? Whereas when you're playing the Four Seasons, you're actually playing 4 separate concertos in one night. So it's quite the laborious kind of work intensive performance that you have to give. So it takes a lot of effort. You have to learn a lot of notes, a lot of fast notes, a lot of slow notes.
Right.
But Vivaldi was such a genius because he himself was a violin virtuoso. He composed a lot of string music. He was actually head of an orphanage where there were a lot of
potential musicians.
Well, a lot of children that played string instruments, even the bassoon, like one of the early bassoons, because Vivaldi was a Baroque composer. Right. So this is he predated Beethoven, you know, ba 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 bum, da 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 dum, that guy. Right. So he predated that guy, and he composed a lot of these different works. So he basically composed works for the kids at the orphanage. So all that to say, he really wrote a lot of idiomatic works for the violin. So while yes, it's labor intensive to prepare these works, they fit very well in the hand. So they're actually quite a joy to play. And Renata just was so masterful at making all the voices in the orchestra really she masterfully made them come to life, being that they were all kind of truncated into the piano voice. So normally this piece of music would be played with a violin soloist and a string orchestra with a cembalo, which is a harpsichord of sorts. And a basso continuo, which is the low, basically like an upright bass kind of situation. So Baroque orchestra. So we at CDL, we played we played a duet. So with her 10 fingers, she basically was my orchestra.
So it was special to watch because, as you say, there are all these other pieces, but the violin is center stage, and a lot of what Renata was doing was filling in, right? Was filling in the background and bringing those parts to life as well. But the focus is on the virtuosity of the musician.
Absolutely.
And to hear some of those runs that probably using the wrong.
No, that's correct.
Phraseology, but to hear you play some of those it was just masterful. And it was just really, it was an emotional experience for me because, you know, I get to see you intermittently and I've seen your skill level at different, like, you know, when you graduated, you had to do your concert. You know, of course, when you were younger and you used to play for the family, and all of those things kind of came back to mind, and it just became like very meaningful and powerful for me.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, it was lovely to see. So tell me a little bit about how growing up in the Bronx, how was that significant and meaningful to your journey? Because that's where it all started, of course, and your mentors, and of course, my sister and your dad, and the role that they played in your formation as a musician.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, you know, being exposed to such great, diverse samples of music since birth truly shaped my musical ear, if you will. Like I know, my mom and my grandma played all sorts of music for me growing up, and they made it a point to expose me to classical music, but also the girl groups from the 60s. I'm a big fan of R&B and gospel music. You know, we come from a family that grew up in the church, so I was also exposed to a lot of religious music. Right. And, you know, circling back to Vivaldi, like a lot of early classical and even Baroque music, you know, you think of a composer like Bach, all of his music was sponsored by the church, most of it. Or like Handel or music of the courts, for example. All these famous composers in Western classical music was essentially sponsored by the church. So talk about like religious origins.
Because you required people in those days, people needed a way to live, right? And they needed patrons.
Exactly.
And that was how music got written. People not everyone understands that. Of course, if you study, you know that. And so the great artists, whether it's Rembrandt or Van Gogh, they had patrons that supported helped them keep body and soul together. So that's fascinating about Vivaldi, you know?
Yeah. So, you know, and then going back to the Bronx, I was also fascinated with hip hop, you know, was it 1520 Cedric Avenue was the birthplace?
That's right. Yeah.
We have our resident hip hop expert, MC.
MC, Too Light.
Yeah.
Sure.
So, truth be told, at one point in my life, I might have wanted to become a rapper. So, there's that. So I was exposed to, beat making at an early
I don't think
age.
your mom would have been too happy with that career.
It's true. And my cousin actually,
Fulfill that
he fulfilled that obligation, and he definitely triumphed in that
Cryptic forever.
genre. Yes, Cryptic 518, right, or something. There you go. So yeah, in all seriousness, though, it formed my, like, not only my musical taste, but also formed who I am. I think it's very important to have in the music world to have a strong sense of identity.
Right.
Because, in my case, to your point, I have traveled all over the world. I've been, to many festivals, to many, I have had several orchestral appointments, or in different countries. And one thing that people have always told me is like, oh yeah, you're the New Yorker. You're that girl from New York, right? So like, that's definitely a part of my identity that,
do you tell us specifically, like, no, the Bronx to be exact?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. They're like, what part of New York? Bronx, New York. Gotta throw up the X. So yeah, it's where I'm from. It's who I am. It's my identity. And when people ask me like, oh, you're American? I'm like, no, I'm from New York. I'm from the Bronx. Like, that's from the proud.
Slight distinction, yeah.
Proud, borough of the BX. So yeah.
So tell me about, your mentor. The earliest mentor.
Yes, Mr. Reese.
That was a really important person.
Yes. I was very fortunate to have, one of the greatest pedagogues to come out of Moscow, who is a gentleman by the name of Alexander Reese. And he formerly taught us at the Nielsen School of Music in Moscow. And he was a colleague of the likes of Glinka and Shostakovich and a lot of famous Soviet composers. And he made his way to the United States, and he just so happened to get a job, or he landed in the Bronx, and he got a job at the Bronx House School of Music. And thanks to my grandma, who was the number one proponent for me to get, like, or my number one backer to get music lessons, she took me to the Bronx House School of Music and was like, what instrument do you want to learn? And I was like, violin. And she definitely helped me make my decision there. Right. And he happened to, I think he chose me, or I forget how that selection process happened.
I'm pretty sure he realized the talent that you had. Yeah.
I hope so.
Well,
apparently.
Either way, he was right.
He was right.
Somehow.
And he was kind enough to take me into his studio, and I studied with him for several years until we couldn't afford it anymore. And, but we've stayed in touch, and he knows of, my latest achievements, and he's very proud.
So he's still alive?
He's still alive. And
he was how old back in the day?
What was his name?
How old was he? Sorry.
How old was he at the time?
I think he must have been in like his,
No.
He must have been like in his 40s.
Oh, so he was young still.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or no, you're right. Maybe his 50s. You're right. He's got to be like 80 something now.
Yeah.
This guy.
No. Yeah. So anyway, he's definitely, he gave me my technical foundation.
Sure.
He was the reason why I, could play the violin at all. Right. Granted, I never took my lessons seriously because I was a kid. I wasn't really involved in any youth orchestras at the time. And that's
where you learn the discipline, right?
Well, yeah, or I learned the foundation of technique, and like the importance of having, good posture and all these different things that are essential to playing the instrument well.
Right. So I remember those days. I remember going to recitals there.
Yep.
And your brother Stephen used to play the piano as
Correct.
well. Yeah,
he also took lessons at the Bronx House.
Yeah.
So shout out to the Bronx House.
Amen.
I think they're still in existence.
I'm sure they are. And I don't want to. There's a long arc of your career.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to take too long.
But I know that something that stands out for me was your work with the Orquesta de las Américas, right?
Yeah.
And the youth orchestra, right?
Well,
there's two versions.
So I, at around the age of 13 or so, my family decided to move to Chile, and it is there that I joined the Youth Orchestra of Chile. And I was awarded several scholarships. I auditioned and won several scholarships to be concertmaster of the National Youth Orchestra and of the country, and then also of the municipal theater. Right. And then I was accepted into the National Conservatory of Chile through the University of Chile. So it's basically like a pre-college program. Right. And I studied there for quite a bit. And then I got my first professional appointment with the National Symphony of Chile, which was my first professional orchestral job at the age of 18 or so. Okay. And then from there I stayed in Chile for several years, and it was there that I fell in love with playing in orchestra, and that right. I was exposed to a lot of incredible maestros and soloists, and I had incredible teachers that just helped me form my playing and inform my playing. Sure. And guide me to the path that would eventually take me to Europe, to Asia, and then eventually bring me back stateside. Right.
That just, I remember seeing pictures, because obviously I wasn't with you. I was still on mainland. And I remember seeing pictures and seeing various performances on various platforms. And I was just living, vicariously through you and what you were doing, and talking to your mom all the time about, and so the transition to the States, we won't go into the circumstances, but there was a time when you decided to come back to finish your studies, right? Mm-hmm. Pretty much. And from there you went to university in New Jersey. Mm-hmm. And you had some great teachers there as well. Yeah, sure. I
actually, while I was on tour in South America, my former teacher who was with the Met Opera Orchestra was on faculty with the orchestra that I was on tour with. And I played in one of her master classes, and she really took an interest in my playing, and she asked me what I was doing at the time academically, and she offered me a spot in her studio, and she told me, hey, I'm teaching at a school in Montclair, New Jersey. It's not too far from New York City, and I would love to offer you a full scholarship. Wow. So when I heard that, because otherwise I couldn't afford to go anywhere. But it just so happened that the school was really interested in recruiting me. She talked to the people in charge, the dean of the school, and they gave me a package I couldn't refuse. So I was able to come over and study with her. And, the Met Opera Orchestra is one of the finest orchestras in the world. Yeah. The number one opera orchestra, in my humble opinion, and the opinion of, a lot of people, the rest of the world. Right. So, and it happens to be, in the cradle of the arts in New York City, or like in Spanish, say the La Cuna de las Artes. I couldn't resist. And it's because of that move that I was able to establish firm roots back in my beloved East Coast of the U.S.
Right. And that's been a springboard for you to travel all over the world, mm-hmm. and various engagements, various festivals, mm-hmm. in countries near and far. Mm-hmm. And that's just been an incredible journey that you've been on. Oh, yeah. And the arc of your career is really quite fascinating to me. And
thank you.
We were so privileged and so happy to have you perform at the center. It was an honor to have you.
My name is Daniel Irizarry. I'm the co-host with my father, Dan, and producer of all things technological. And I'm here with my cousin. I'm joined by my cousin, Aurora Mendez, also known as Chucky. Aurora is a professional violinist, educator, innovator, and she's at the intersection of music and technology. She's performed internationally in Germany and give me some other ones.
China, Argentina,
Slovakia. Ever Slovenia?
No.
Okay. Just curious. So she's
Do you want to go to Slovenia?
classically trained musician, but she's also carved out a unique niche in the Web3 space as a Web3 consultant, helping artists explore how blockchains, coins, tokens, and new technologies can empower creators and connect them directly with their audiences. So Aurora bridges the gap between older traditional classical music and modern innovation. And so I'm excited to get into a couple of things here in this conversation about where music is headed and the technological aspects and where kind of business, music, and technology intersect. So how did you get interested into, what led you to bridge this gap between music and technology and getting interested in blockchain and Web3?
Well, first, Daniel, it's such an honor to be here.
Happy to have you.
And just to talk to you about this. It's, we're two people that are fascinated by tech, and I'm just excited to talk to you about this. So, we would have to backtrack back to the pandemic. And as someone, like I just said, who is fascinated by tech, I found myself in lockdown, and I, like many of my friends and colleagues, stumbled upon an app called Clubhouse. Do you remember that app?
Yeah, it's like you talk. I didn't go on it, but it's like Twitter Spaces before Twitter Spaces.
Well, it was like the precursor before to Twitter Spaces, and actually Twitter Spaces basically stole the idea.
Yeah, they stole the idea.
But they improved upon it, and I thought Twitter Spaces really, improved a lot of things. Anyway, so in one of these audio chat rooms for the viewers who might not be aware of what Clubhouse is, it's an app that you could download, and it's basically what chat rooms were like back in the day on AOL, where you would just chat to people. You could do the same thing, but with audio, with your own voice. So it's like a live interactive podcast, like a group chat. To complete strangers, unless you actually knew the people. So I think we were all craving connection in this time of great distance, right, from each other. So, and I remembered I saw a lot of my friends and colleagues in a lot of these rooms, and I, of course, geared towards like the tech spaces, because I've always been fascinated, and I stumbled upon a lot of these Web3 spaces. I was like, what the heck is that? And I had been aware of, blockchain via what a lot of people might know as Bitcoin or Ethereum, if you really have gone that far deep into the weeds. And in there, I befriended the likes of people like Sam Bruckman of Betty's Notebook.
Okay.
The Nicholas Reeves, composer of Betty's Notebook, people like that, and or Christina Spinay, composer who also went on to be one of the most formidable composers who also bridged the gap between classical music and Web3. So that's where I started Wet My Feet, and I became inspired by these individuals, and I wanted to know more, and I just went into a major deep dive down several rabbit holes. Shout out to the rabbit holes that one can go down on the internet. And I started to devour white papers, not only on what is known as the Ethereum network, but also a lot of different networks, including like Solana, and they were developing Polkadot, all these different networks within the blockchain space. So that's where my origin story started.
For people that don't know, maybe like my dad, and I only know so much, but how would you explain Web3 in the simplest terms, to a fellow musician, from the musician's point of view?
So what I always like to say, or how I always like to explain it, is first you have to know what Web 1 and Web 2 are, right? So Web 1 was the read-only version of the internet, right? Mm-hmm. So the first iteration. Everyone remembers, maybe you were just, I don't know if you were born yet.
Maybe.
You were still in the womb. You weren't even fully baked yet, man.
Yeah.
So like the first couple websites were what? Like Yahoo or Ask Jeeves, or even before Google. Yeah. Before Google, those first websites you were lucky if they had anything indexed. Yeah. Forget about search bars, forget about anything like that. So that's, sorry?
Everything was HTML.
Oh yeah, and even more basic than that, So that's the first iteration of the internet, read only, right?
Yeah.
Then so that's Web 1. Web 2 came along. So a lot of you might remember MySpace. You might remember the beginning stages of YouTube. You might remember when Tumblr. We have a Tumblr fan. Daniel, we have a Tumblr fan.
My dad's a Tumblr girl.
Watch out. Be careful. And then we had the advent of the smartphone. BlackBerry walked so that iPhones could run, So because we had all these social networks and smartphones, we now had an internet that could be interactive, the collective. You had people interacting with each other. You had people uploading pictures of people liking things that didn't belong to them or poking people on Facebook. Lisa poked me, my aunt.
My mom poked her.
Yeah, on Facebook or, people like that. Anyway, that's the second iteration of the internet, and we are still currently there. Wouldn't you agree, Daniel? Right?
I would agree 100%. Yes.
And so now we have the emergence of Web3, which is the decentralization of the internet. So no longer, there will come a day where we will no longer have to rely on entities like Google. Or these cloud services or these large companies or monopolies that have monopolies on our data, if you will, or access to. How long is this podcast? To be continued. Be on the lookout for part 2, guys. I think
we'll do another one, don't we?
I think we need a coquito for that one or something. Shout out. Anyway, so like Web3, you have now this opportunity to create your own thing. It's like a new frontier, if you will. So to circle back to your question, how would you explain this to musicians? Well, you now have the option to go and say, hey, I don't need a label. I don't need,
publicist.
or I don't even need a financial institution to deliver my royalties.
You can make a fair industry, right?
Oh yeah, fair, equitable, or even transparent.
Yeah, transparency.
Because transparency is something we all crave. At least from an artist perspective, that's something that we are all desperately in need for, especially when you are someone that is waiting 3 and 4 months for a payment for a service that you rendered. And
2 years for
2
royalties.
years, not even just that. Like there are people that are still waiting to get paid for a show they played. And so-and-so said, the check is in the mail. Yeah. But hey, what if I had, what if you sent that payment through, no. What if you sent that payment through a smart contract what if I gave you my wallet address and, or what if that payment went through, something like that. And then I would have the security of knowing that that payment would have been there like that.
All through the blockchain, correct?
Of course. So so that's how I would explain what Web3 is. So all I'm saying is it is the opportunity for you to be your own everything.
Your own label.
Your own label, your own boss in many respects.
You'd have direct online ownership pretty much.
Absolutely.
Even of the platforms themselves, right? Because you could build your own platform.
Absolutely. You could build your own platform, but you could also work within somebody else's platform. For example, even in 2022, when I was, full 100% working in Web3, there were platforms like Async Art or like Catalog Works there, and they're still in business, or Arpeggi Labs. There are all these different, projects that were up and running, and they were primarily NFT based, where, artists would go upload their work and then they would, create projects, and they would essentially fund their next project because their first project was so successful. So I remember that happening. I was like, my gosh, this is such a huge opportunity, and people were already doing it. So is there a potential for it to be super successful? Yes. Now, is there a potential for it to be not so successful? Sure. But that's why we try things, right?
Yeah. So if a young quartet, let's say in your situation, wanted to raise 20 grand to make an album, instead of using a label, they could use Web3 and have, what would it be? 200 people pay $100 or whatever, crowdfunded, and bypass that whole thing, correct?
That's definitely a way to do it, and it has been done. So, for example, I mentioned Sam Bruckman before, right? So you can definitely check this out. I highly recommend it. He created the project Betty's Notebook, which is based on the story of Amelia Earhart's, I think her secretary, Betty Clink.
Are they looking for her now? Amelia Earhart or something? They're doing that. They're giving the files on Amelia Earhart. Forget it. That's a sidebar.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're coming together in the same email.
Smoke and mirrors, smoke and mirrors. So he composed this piece along with composer Nicholas Reeves, and so this piece was composed way before Web3, but they decided to upsell it as a piece of programmable music via an NFT, and they utilized those funds to then fund other projects, but they sold the project, Daniel, for $375,000.
That's a lot of scarola.
Yeah. So there is the proof of concept is there, and it continues to happen even till today.
So you talked about NFTs. NFTs came around during a little bit after the pandemic. They really started to come around. They've been around for a while, but it's kind of a story of booming and busting, I guess you could say. That I don't know if it was a bubble exactly, but there was a lot of money put into it. And what are the use cases where you say NFTs are still useful these days?
Yeah, unfortunately, they did experience a boom of sorts. Mass adoption is always one of the central focuses for Web3 and even in blockchain in general, not just in NFTs, but even in cryptocurrency in the DeFi space, right? That's something that needs to happen in order for decentralized finance. So DeFi is the abbreviation for decentralized finance for our listeners that might not know what that means. That means essentially like, hey, these entities want to replace banks and make banking more transparent. Yeah. So like, for example, you might be saying like, why the heck do I need DeFi? What is that? I don't know. I want my money under the mattress. Like, Daniel, do you have 200 under the mattress? You better have 200 under the mattress. Do you have a block of gold? No? You have a block of gold?
No, I got a gold chain somewhere. My grandfather. Yeah.
There you go. So basically, why is DeFi important? Well, because you have the ability to send, for example, if you have family members that might live overseas, you will have the ability to transfer money via a cryptocurrency of your choice in a matter of seconds. Well, depending on the currency. So like if you send Bitcoin to somebody, you have to wait till the block resolves, and then that's about 20 minutes or so. But nonetheless, whereas if you were to send a bank transfer,
2 to 3 days,
and depending on the amount, and then you also have to, there's so many different layers of red tape, which are of course safeguards that I'm not saying that are a bad thing, but if things happen or emergency happens, things hit the fan, you want to have the option of, being able to send the money to people anyway. So that's why DeFi could be, important to you, right? So yeah, I mean, these things are definitely in existence. They're important, and I don't know what to tell you, man. I could go on for hours.
Of course. So yeah, you covered a couple of things: NFTs, DeFi, and the blockchain, and all that. But let's move just for a second to AI, because AI in music is a big thing. It's a big thing in movies. It's a big thing all over. As far as possibly displacing people from their jobs, possibly ruining the business, movie business, whoever. The things that people say. So where do you see AI empowering musicians? And because there's issues of consent, right? There's issues of Drake and The Weeknd. There was that song years ago that came out that wasn't them. It was AI, right? So there's an issue of you consenting to use your likeness and stuff like that. I think it was Grimes or some artist used, like, she asked for people to like clone her voice or something like that, or like make AI songs from her. So it seems to be an instrument. Kanye, whatever's that, he uses it a lot. And so yeah, how do you see it kind of playing a part in the space? And does it empower people? Is it a hindrance? What type of how do you look at it, AI in general in the music space?
Hey, that's such a great question. It is definitely top of mind for not just musicians, but everybody. Everybody's using it. I mean, who hasn't downloaded ChatGPT?
My dad.
The one person.
Only person in the world that downloaded it.
So you have all of these tools and, these innovations in tech that, are solving problems that are, go from the mundane to the highly problematic in your life. Yeah. But at the same time, there's that question of authentic artistic creation versus you're stealing my shit. Can we curse on here?
No,
you're stealing my IP. So when it comes to artificial intelligence potentially taking your IP and then having that go from 0 to infinity for perpetuity,
ad infinitum, I think they say in Latin.
There you go. Then that's a problem.
Yeah.
That's a problem because where's my paycheck?
Yeah.
Because that's my IP. I mean, like Denmark, I believe just recently guaranteed that they are going to give copyrights or trademarks to every citizen for their likeness. Their likeness,
even if they're not a public figure.
Even if they're not a public figure from birth.
Wow.
And that is how important protection is, or they're taking protection of one's likeness from go. And that's something that I think every government should consider, because whether you are aware of it or not, your likeness is already out there and it's ready to be manipulated. But circling back to music and art, what can we do? Well, number one, we need to be informed. Right. Yeah. So we need to know how can this AI benefit us and how can it hinder our output? Right. So if going back to, 2022, 2023, there were projects, Daniel, for example, like Arpeggi Labs that wanted to create a reserve of sorts of sounds that you would create. So for example, you, as a former beat maker, you made beats, right?
Yeah.
So like as a former beat maker, let's say you made a bunch of beats and stems and you, as Daniel, wanted to sell those. You always wanted a cut from that. Let's say I go and I buy your stems and I bought them as NFTs. Every time I would use them in a track, I would just put in your wallet address. And every time that track would get played, you would get royalties for that. Or if I would go and sell that to somebody, or sell a track with just a bit of your stems, you would always get paid. So there's always that tracing back to you. But like, that is a great way of using generative AI. And that's something that was starting to be built within Web3 infrastructure. But then you have these big guys, these big sharks playing in the AI Web3 space that are already taking advantage of the tech that's already in existence and already flying with it. So basically it's for, what was it? Finders keepers, or like if you, So like if you take action and you see the opportunity and take it, then snooze, you lose. So that's essentially what has happened. So what I'm trying to say to summarize everything, you need to educate yourself. And by that, I mean, you need to stay on top of the latest and know AI. What's going, like what's happening with OpenAI. And that's just, so remember, the US is not the only country innovating. Huh?
You got DeepSeek in China.
Oh yeah, and so many more. So many more, and not just in Asia. Don't forget Africa. Don't forget all these other continents and all these other countries
Everybody's innovating. It's like an arms race.
Don't forget Norway. Don't forget Denmark. Don't forget Finland. All the Scandinavian and Nordic countries, they also have interests.
Interesting. And so yeah. For me, I guess I always thought of it. I kind of was not rapping so much, making music so much when the ChatGPT really came out. But I would use it. I was taking a screenwriting class, and I do write screenplays, whatever. And it would help you like with ideas. That's it. Like, but it can't obviously just same with music. Like when it makes music by itself without really it like being humanized, it comes out crazy. It sounds, you can tell when something's written by AI, right? But you can take an idea that it gives you like, oh, you should write a screenplay about this. Okay. And then you actually write it with yourself. And I'm assuming that's pretty similar to, come up with a certain chord progression, or whatever it is that makes you feel this way. And then you play it, but you make your own thing out of it. If I'm assuming that's kind of how
it's the same like with ChatGPT or any AI model. If you know how to ask it or give it direction,
you know how to prompt it. Prompt engineering.
If you know how to feed it the right prompt, then it can get you the result that you were after.
Oh, now to close it out, 2030, 5 years from now, it could go in several directions. Music and tech, that kind of connection. Someone could see, a more artist-centric music industry where revenue flows directly via smart contracts or something like this, right? You can have AI assistants handle the mundane stuff and all this stuff. Now, and maybe it'll help the art flourish, maybe not. But how do you kind of see the direction that things are going right now with Web3, AI, all that stuff? But as it pertains to your craft music in 2030, what do you think it's going to look like? You'll still be playing, or are you going to be like a hologram or something? There's going to be a hologram.
I'll have you know, I played the first wedding. I played one of the first weddings that happened in the metaverse.
Really? In the metaverse?
There you go. You can look it up.
That's awesome.
Did I tell you that?
No, I don't think so. Let's look it up. If I had a producer that's
I don't know. I think it was in Decentraland.
Decentraland.
Do you know what that is?
No, I think I
See,
it is.
That's how deep I'm in.
I can tell.
Yeah. Well, 2030. Well, that's such an interesting question because also like the next Bitcoin halving is going to happen in 2028. Do you know what a Bitcoin halving is? So they're going to burn some Bitcoin basically. And there's going to be few, I don't want to lose our listeners, but basically look it up, Bitcoin halving, a big event if you follow the Bitcoin blog. Anyway, so that's going to be a big deal. That's going to impact the market quite a bit. But in terms of development within Web3 and Web3 infrastructure for musicians, no, I really think that by that point, we should see mass adoption at scale. Would love to see, well, I have a wish list, but I don't know if this is actually going to happen. I would love to see further development of maybe the next iteration of an NFT of some sort, and like that's way more user friendly, because that was always the problem.
Everybody was always like, "What's an NFT?"
Yeah, it's just a JPEG, but the underlying tech was just so fascinating. And if people really just like would get away from, just the Bored Apes or the Pudgy Penguins or like all these different things, which, had a purpose and they did their thing. If they were able to look beyond that and see and go beneath the surface, they would see, hey, this tech could actually change the game for so many musicians. And I mean, they're trying to use like POAPs now. They're still trying to use that or like even for tickets for venues, they're trying to use NFTs still. But I don't know. I would hope that the good actors in the space would continue to try to build it out. But I think a lot of trust was lost, especially when NFTs just started to crash because there were so many bad actors and a lot of people.
Crypto and the whole
there are a lot. And everybody's like, oh, crypto, you're going to lose money. And which is, absolutely. And please don't invest. Like none of what we're talking about is financial advice. We're just two random people on a podcast. Right, Daniel? Because once the NFT market crashed and everybody's like, oh, see, it's a scam. Well, yes, there are bad people, but the underlying tech is what's absolutely fascinating. And I would hope that by 2030 that we could see further developments that would actually make a lot of change for the good.
So I guess to me, the question was more like the idea in the future of artists being not controlled, like Patreon almost. Like Patreon was created for this reason, right? People go on there, you pay money to them and you like request stuff. It's not like you have to do it.
Problem with Patreon is they take a cut.
It's true. But in Web3 and all the direct payments, no cut. They go right to your wallet,
and they control essentially what you can and can't deliver in terms of output.
100% there's censorship. But the idea, I guess, of people like putting money in and requesting artists to do stuff and kind of like almost having creative input. Idea of fans, super fans, whatever, having creative input in music. I don't know. It's interesting to me. You could like say, hey, Travis Scott, I want you to release this unreleased song, whatever, and it actually happens. I don't know if that'll be in the future.
That's definitely something that artists can incorporate in their output, but not every artist will do something like that, but definitely something worth exploring.
Okay. Interesting. So 2030, it'll be different. We might have Web 4 by then.
I doubt it. We're barely getting out of Web 2.5.
Barely getting out of Web 2.5. Yeah. So as of this recording, we're at Web 2.5-ish. But this is my cousin, Aurora Mendez, a violinist, virtuosa maybe, and an amazing performer, and obviously a great intellect when it comes to technology and web infrastructure and cryptocurrency and blockchain and all that stuff. And this was Vida Latina Upstate, the podcast hosted by my father, Dan Irizarry. I'm Daniel Irizarry, and that's all. Ciao.
Thank you.
Okay, let's wrap it up.
Thank you for watching the Vida Latina Upstate podcast, brought to you by Virtual Barrio Productions. And thank you to Excelsior Advisors. Follow us on Instagram at Vida Latina Podcast. That's Vida Latina Podcast on Instagram. Subscribe to this channel, Vida Latina Upstate podcast for more content every 2 weeks. And thank you to my dad, Dan Irizarry, and Siempre Pa'lante. Ciao.